Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel and our Simple Abundance year as we follow through Sarah Von Bronick's book, Simple Abundance. And it's the beginning of October now, and just wanted to touch upon a couple of the recent entries. We're talking about the topic of burnout, perfection, overwork, being a workaholic, right? So there are a few entries here at the beginning of the month which speak to those things. So on October 1st, she had an entry called Recognizing Burnout Before You're Charred. So that's kind of like when we talked about scrambled or fried, right? I thought it was going to be more about burnout, but this is recognizing when you're burned out, but you actually don't even realize it. Like if you're really burned out, then maybe you can take time off and then make some changes and like slowly ease back into your life, and that break might help. But she does make a good point here about chronic burnout, that you're just like living like this as a lifestyle. Sometimes burnout manifests itself as a sense of complete exhaustion at the end of a project that has taken months of challenging and intensive work, right? So that would be like recognizable burnout. But first degree burnout, this is probably what a lot of us suffer from, the soul snuffer, she calls it, comes from living unbalanced for years when what was supposed to be a temporary situation becomes a lifestyle. I have some concern about my current situation becoming my life for, however much longer. I don't really know how I can keep up the pace that I'm at, but I'm really just doing what I have to do to get through right now, as a lot of people are. So I'm definitely, honestly, pretty prone to burnout, and it's usually because I just go. I'm a pretty all or nothing person. I think I've said that before. So I just go, and I appreciate the simple abundance path because it reminds me of things like that I need to have a personal Sabbath, that I need to take time for myself, because I need those reminders. Because a lot of times, and we'll talk about workaholism in the next entry, a lot of times we're overworking or we're over busy because being in the stillness or facing the issues, emotionally, psychologically, physically, facing the issues on your plate are almost like you can't sit with them. So you use work as a vice. And there can be positive things about being a hard worker, and there must be some sort of a thrill or a takeaway from it, or it wouldn't become like an addiction, if you consider workaholism such as another addiction. So maybe we feel like we have a purpose in work. Maybe we feel like we're good at it, and so it brings us a like positive feedback and worth. And maybe we somehow sort of strive on that anxiety, edge of the cliff sort of feeling. It's not even kind of, it is a real toxic way of living, but it's actually pretty common in America for sure, right? Burnout often begins with an illness, she says. Anything from a bout of flu that you can't shake or chronic fatigue syndrome, and it's usually accompanied by depression. Sometimes burnout is hard to distinguish from a creative dry spell, especially if you're good at denial, which most women are. It's burnout when you go to bed exhausted every night and wake up tired every morning. I think we can probably relate to that, right? When no amount of sleep refreshes you. Month after weary month, it's burnout when everything becomes too much effort. Combing your hair, going out to dinner, visiting friends for the weekend, even going on vacation. Isn't that pretty alarming? If you're so burned out that even going on vacation feels like a chore. I could see that because, if you are a really hard worker and you have so many balls in the air, taking time off is just like, there's so much preparation to leave for vacation, and you've got to delegate and people have to know, and then maybe you're on vacation and they're still calling you because nobody else can do what you do, and then you come back and it's just this onslaught of so much stuff, and you're just kind of like, why did I go? It's almost worse. I totally get that. I've had a lot of positions where I've been in charge, or I know passwords or some sort of crisis way of fixing things, and so they have to call me on vacation. I don't like living like that. I just want to be like, if I'm on vacation, my phone is off, But we don't all have a life like that, so let's see what else. It's burnout when you can't believe under any circumstances that you'll ever want to have sex again. It's burnout when you find yourself cranky all the time, bursting into tears or going into fits of rage at the slightest provocation. Could be my regular life. When a glass of spilled milk makes an avalanche or becomes an avalanche, it's burnout. Yeah, like I mentioned, being on the edge of the cliff. I get that, because you might be going along and you're like holding it together, and then something like, it seems very small, like spilled milk or whatever, something like that could go, your hat could blow away in the wind or something like that, and you just lose it. It's just like the final straw. You were so on the edge. So these are all symptoms that you're really living in this pretty scary, precarious way. And she mentioned illness, and we didn't go into so far as to say disease, which is dis-ease, right? But all those things can manifest from really doing too much and getting burned out. When you're frightening the animals, it's burnout. It's burnout when you dread the next phone call. It's burnout when you feel trapped and hopeless, unable to dream, experience pleasure, or find contentment. It's burnout when neither big thrills or little moments have the power to move you, when nothing satisfies you because you haven't a clue what's wrong or how to fix it, because everything's wrong, because something is terribly out of whack. You. Wow, mind blown, right? When nothing satisfies you because you haven't a clue. Sorry. It's burnout when you feel there is not one other person on the face of the earth who can help you. And you're right, she actually says. When you're suffering from burnout, you are the only person on this earth who can help you, because you're the only one who can mask the lifestyle changes that need to be made, to call a halt, to take a slower path, to make a detour. When you have no strength left, you have no choice but to rely on the strength of a saner power to restore you to wholeness. And she's got power and wholeness capitalized. So again, this would be like a connection with your authentic self, the divine, God, whatever resonates with you. But sometimes you have to let go, let God. I think I've said that a whole bunch of times this year, right? So I talked about, actually back, I think it was in March or April, I did a video about some ways that I keep balance in my life. And I need to look back on that as well. But things like routing the emails to different email addresses, or not answering your phone after a certain time of the day, and things like that. So you may want to come up with some specific lifestyle changes that would do you good and give you more time for yourself and a better pace. And I have definitely found that when I have said to people in the past, like, listen, work-life balance is really important to me, and I don't check my phone after 7 o'clock or something like that, most people are like, wow, good for you. Like they wish they could be like that as well. And what are they going to say? I've never had anybody react and go, really? That's crazy. Well, I'm going to call you at 8 p.m., So most times it's met with positive and surprising feedback, usually, because most people would like to have boundaries like that. And we do have an entry coming up. It's not in what I'm going to talk about today, but there is an entry about boundaries. So in October 2nd's entry, it's a further continuation of this burnout, but looking at workaholism and a lot of things I already said about it, like why we do it, how it seduces us, like the benefits of it, like I mentioned, there's got to be positive, right? And she mentions perfectionism too. And that's what the entry October 3rd is called, Little Miss Perfect. These are all tied together. Typically, if you are a perfectionist, I would say, I don't know if there's scientific research to this, but I would say you're probably also apt to be a workaholic, because if you want everything to be perfect, then if you have, and I'm speaking from my own personal experience, if you have any loose ends, then you want to have them tied up so that you don't have to deal with them the next day or whatever. So you may work longer, or, and also when you're a perfectionist, then you spend a lot more time on tasks because you want everything to be perfect. So of course you're going to be working more too, right? So it's just like a vicious cycle. And Sarah is right there with us. She says she's been a workaholic really for her whole life. Even kryptonite can't stop us, she says. And for years we've all vehemently denied it too. Yeah. If you hear yourself frequently muttering under your own breath, this is insane. Welcome to my world. The time has come to quietly scrutinize your working style. Authentic success doesn't come wrapped in a shroud. Definitely go back and watch that video about authentic success. I have a kitty. Like authentic success versus worldly success. I would love to be more in line with the authentic success and not be so concerned with the worldly success, which would, I think that if you're very consumed with worldly success, then you would be more on the side of workaholism, right? When we succumb to workaholism, what's really happening is that we've lost faith in Spirit's willingness to help us achieve success. We've separated the secular from the Spirit. Asking for grace doesn't seem as practical as working around the clock. Now, she has 2 questions for us. When was the last time Spirit accompanied you to work? And when was the last time you asked it to? Wow. May have to sit with those questions. I mentioned in October 3rd, it's about perfectionism, and it's a lot of what she's been saying in the entries that I've already discussed today. And she makes a good point in this entry about how you can't really shut off the news, shut off social media. Like, well, you could maybe go live in a cabin, I suppose, but she makes the point, like, I could tell you to do all these things, but it's not necessarily realistic for our current lifestyle. Although I will say, and if you haven't watched The Social Dilemma on Netflix, that is a really eye-opening documentary. And I will say that as I watched it, I realized, I told you I'm not a phone person, so I'm not the average person. I'm just not addicted to social media. I'm on YouTube more than anything else, honestly. So I do like YouTube. I don't know if that's considered a social network anyway, but check out that documentary because, and this is a sidebar, but I was really alarmed to find out about how much it's playing into the divisive culture in our country specifically, and probably our world as a whole. Anyway, that was just an aside, but social media for sure could be a thing if you're a perfectionist, that you're in that comparison mind frame, right? You're watching somebody else and you want to be like them, or you are trying to make your pictures perfect. You're only going to post something that you look good in, I mean, that makes sense. I don't think most people would want to look bad online, but actually back to that documentary, there were some alarming statistics about young girls mostly who are, they're growing up with more depression, more suicide, because they are watching all these things where the people they're following in most cases are celebrities who have these filters on their Instagram. And they also said in that documentary that there are people that are going to plastic surgeons and showing them a picture of themselves with one of those Instagram filters and saying, like, I want to look like this. So, I mean, Sarah's talking more about perfectionist and being like having the perfect home and having the perfect performance at work and all these other things. She talks a little bit about appearance, but I would say that if you are comparing yourself to others and you are a perfectionist, then that can be really hard. And another video to check out that I did back, I think also maybe February, was about my own struggle with my body and my self-image. And I didn't even grow up in the age of social media. Everything kind of happened after college for me, so I'm in an older generation, but I definitely know the struggles of wishing that I looked different, or feeling like, especially at my age now, I kind of look and I'm like, well, I have to almost embrace imperfection as far as my body goes, because I can't turn back the hands of time at this point, unless I wanted to get some major surgery, I suppose, but I don't know. Anyway, this is all over the place. Sorry, I'll get back to point here. Oh, one thing to mention, remember that entry that we had where it was the Amish, I believe? They always have an imperfect square in their quilts because it's a reminder that nobody's perfect. Only really God would be perfect, right? But at the end of this entry, she says, a point worth pondering. Upon completing the universe, the great creator pronounced it very good, but didn't say that it was perfect. So even God didn't say that everything was perfect. Something to think about. And then in today's entry, I'll just do a quick little discussion on this one. It's called Homework, and it's about working from home, which I have done for almost a decade, and I'm still doing in some capacity, not full time, but I can understand. Sarah talks about this. She's done it for 25 plus years and more. It might have even been longer than that, but nearly her entire adult life, she says. So when you do work from home, you really have to make sure that you set up a lot of rules for yourself so that you do have a work-life balance. It's not like you are leaving a building, driving home, and in some cases you could be leaving your voicemail there and everything, and people know that you have certain hours and then you're not going to be back at your desk. But when you work from home, sometimes those lines are blurred. And I know for me, in the time that I've worked from home, I've always tried to make sure that I have a separate workspace that is separate from my living space, which in this new place that I'm moving to, everything's gonna be together. So I'll still try to maybe see if I can have like a folding screen or something, but that'll be interesting for me. It'll be different because I have had, like I showed you guys the videos of my current place that I'm leaving, and my office has been in the front of the house, and then my living space in the back of my house. Another place I lived, actually the last two places I lived, my office was downstairs in the house, and then my bedroom and other areas were upstairs. So I've always had a way to close it off, but I still had to make a lot of rules for myself, like I mentioned about the phone call times and things like that. And then you have to stop yourself. If you're workaholic, it's really hard, but you have to stop yourself from like checking in on your work computer and do you have any messages and things like that. So it's interesting, and I'm sure a lot of people now that have had a different 2020 where now they're working from home, there may be things that they're really enjoying, because I do like working from home. I wish I could do it full time again, because I'm definitely happier when I can just be in my own space, and I'm a solitary worker. I mean, I can work as a group, but I definitely feel better just working alone. Where was I going with that? Oh, but there are perks, there's no commute, so you're probably saving money. Your day is shorter because you don't have that commute. You can stop and take breaks and go into your kitchen, although that could be a negative if you're just eating all day. But you have to have discipline too about not sitting down and working in your pajamas all day too. So there's a lot of things about working from home that, yeah. she mentioned the hamster wheel, and if you work from home, it can be like just never ending. It's just like being a workaholic times two because you're also at home. So I have some coping mechanisms, like I mentioned in my planner, 2 different columns, home and work, so that I make sure that I'm giving time to my home tasks as well. But I do need to be better about that right now. Once you realize how comfortable, even pleasurable it can be to work from home, it's easy to become reckless, taking on more than you can handle reasonably. Yeah, that's true too. You might be thinking like, oh, I don't have that hour commute, so I can do another project. But you have to have those boundaries, Working from home can be a genuine step toward self-determination once we honor the sense of balance we originally sought away from the office. Yeah, that's a good point. She has a quote from Virginia Woolf, and it says, if people are highly successful in their profession, they lose their senses. What do you think about that? Sight goes, they have no time to look at pictures. Sound goes, they have no time to listen to music. Speech goes, they have no time for conversation. They lose their sense of proportion. The relations between one thing and another in humanity goes. Wow, those are pretty dark words. Or Virginia Woolf was pretty profound with her words. And then Sarah says, heed her wise words. Well, I don't know that I would say that all of my senses have gone since I work from home. In fact, I revel more in them. I showed you my office earlier this year. I have essential oils and incense I put on. I have music in the background. I have my birds outside the windows. So I don't know that I would feel like that's true, like for me anyway, from what Virginia Woolf said. But I'm sure everybody has a different experience of working from home. Some people are made for it and some people just aren't. And I have some friends that are making that decision now, that their employers are saying, you can come back for X number of hours or you can stay home. So it's an interesting new world that we're in with this working from home. Anyway, I could talk about all these things forever. Got to get off to my weekend job. And anyway, I'm right there with Sarah in all these things. I am trying to overcome some things in my own life, and I told you guys 2020 is my year of balance, and here I am. Just, there's been so much chaos this year, but so maybe next year is going to have to be my do-over. My do-over year of balance, I don't know. Or maybe by the end of the year I will have attained balance. I don't know. Thank you so much for being here. Remember, we're talking about Sarah's principles all year long, and I would say that in today's entry we touched upon a few of those for sure. And it's all about authenticity at its core, right? That's what Simple Abundance is really about. It's this interwoven experience and really finding ourselves and doing some self-exploration. So maybe sit with some of these topics today and let me know what you think, and maybe share some of your experiences if you'd like. I love hearing from you guys. So have a great day, and I will see you on the next video.